All right, I think we're live. I'm just trying to figure out the LinkedIn thing. It's LinkedIn's broken. LinkedIn's busted today, so it's not a good day for Microsoft and LinkedIn. But pushing for you, pulling for you. Hopefully, you get it together. And so instead, I think I hopefully got everybody routed to Twitch. So hopefully, folks will be able to see us on Twitch, and we can still get a good session going today. So we do this every Tuesday. We do this around 12 o'clock every Tuesday. Looking for work. So I'll throw my banners at the bottom of the page so you know what to do. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment box. They will come to me, and then I'll be able to answer those questions and hopefully provide you some value today. Even though our favorite place to do that, LinkedIn, is down. It's a challenge, but we are not going to be deterred. We will just push through. This would be a good test to see if Periscope, we can finally get someone on Periscope. I'm going to jump on there and test it out, see if the stream is working over there. That would be awesome. I feel like today's the day for Periscope to bounce back with LinkedIn being down. So here's your opportunity, Twitch. So this week, I've been super heads down, so I haven't really had an opportunity to think too much or have too many run-ins with folks that are looking to, solve some really hard, tackling some problems and challenges in the hiring and the talent space. But that said, I continue to see more folks posting opportunities and continue to hear about people getting first opportunities. I'm seeing a lot of people getting some nice ones. So even some of the FANG organizations, people posting excitement around jobs at Google, and so that's awesome. Just really, again, shout out and kudos to those that just push through. And even though it's a challenge, get that first opportunity, that first foot in the door, because after that, way easier. So I haven't gotten any job questions via email, so I'll open it up. This is a great time for you to sort of get some of your questions answered regarding the job search process, regarding the interview process, regarding what's it like as a early career developer inside of a shop. What should you be learning? What should you be doing with your time? So feel free to drop some comments and some questions in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to try and answer them. As they start kind of trickling through, I'll sort of pause. But in the meantime, while we're waiting on questions, another way you can send them to me is via email. So you can shoot them to mike@sdcs.io, and I'd be more than happy to answer the questions. This time each week, when they come through, I'll sort of hang on to them together and then cover them during the weekly looking for work session, which is right now. And I asked previously, so I'll ask again, if anybody has any feedback in terms of what would make this process easier, more straightforward. Would it be a website where I could consistently post times and days that we're doing this? It's a little weird that LinkedIn is down, so I didn't really anticipate that. So at the last minute, I was directing people to go elsewhere. But what are you gonna do, right? I'm not in control of the interwebs. Okay, I have people slacking me saying LinkedIn's down. I'm aware. Let's see if we can get people over to Twitch. And yeah, it could be a little bit of a transition where people are like trying to figure out why the internet is broken. And it is disappointing because one of the best job tools I think that's out there right now, and that's available to folks that was not available, 3-4 years ago, it was not the platform it is today, would be LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is like the legit tool that you should be using. Hey there, Samita. Good to see you. So people are starting to kind of find their way in. That's good. One of the reasons why I just love LinkedIn right now is because in one platform, you can do your company research and figure out what kind of organization it is. You can connect with other and network with people that are at the organization And then in many cases, you can apply for the job directly through the platform. And a lot of people are using the like recruiting tools that are built into the platform. So it can be sort of like a one-stop shop. And it's obviously super good public representation. So like a living resume that you can use to get people interested in your background, the stuff that you're doing, your passion projects, all that good stuff. So really, really helpful tool. And I'm pulling from, I think Microsoft and LinkedIn can get it together. They'll figure it out. Something going on over there. One other thing I think that is helpful for folks is to think about what you're spending your time, like how you're prioritizing the use of your time, and basically trying to think of the job search process like a job, and how you might be able to organize yourself and prioritize tasks that are going to make you super productive. So success, if you're running a business and your business is to get yourself a job, success is getting that offer. So what are the leading indicators? What are the key performance indicators? What are the things that you could set as good sort of signals that you're getting closer, that you're making progress? Because I know sometimes it can feel like you're doing a lot of things, but you're not seeing a lot of traction. So we can talk a little bit about that. Throw some questions in the chat. More than happy to answer them. So I've had someone ask me to address a question from the chat earlier a few posts ago. I think what you're referring to is okay, so the answer is, or the question is, a local company contacted me to chat, looked them up on Glassdoor, and they look like a cluster. And then they used a not so nice fancy 4-letter word on Glassdoor reviews. They recently merged with another larger company, so I'm sure that plays in. What are my thoughts as to pursuing bad situations to potentially get experience and be in a caustic environment? There's many reviews, not just a selected few. And so, my answer is, as always, don't overlook the red flags. And so I think it would be okay to have a conversation with the person related to the organization to really vet, was this hey, there was a terrible leadership regime, but we've actually made some significant efforts and we've changed that and we're addressing those situations? Or is this like business as usual? And if this is business as usual, I would keep it moving, right? No caustic environment and terrible organization is worth you being a part of that, because or feeling like you have to be a part of that in order for you to get your first opportunity. There's tons of companies out there. Don't avoid the red flags, the big warnings that are telling you that this is not a great organization, because those are clear signs that you got trouble ahead. So you got to go with your gut in that scenario. I don't think it's does you any good to try and ignore or avoid that. LinkedIn is making a comeback. I like it. I am glad to see that. Yeah, so got another message. It was growth pains. Seems like they were over a period of time, but those are fair questions to ask during a phone screening. You can bring it up and see how they respond. Do they respond in a negative way, and they say, oh, those were terrible employees and they had a vendetta? Or do they acknowledge, like, hey, we had a former leadership team and a culture that was just not healthy, and we have actively taken X, Y, and Z steps, and we want to make sure that this is an organization that is not caustic, and this is not, and are they self-aware? And if they're not aware and they're just like pointing the finger in other places, I wouldn't ignore that red flag. And I know that's tough. A lot of people are like, I don't care. I just want a job. No, it's probably not worth your while. What else? Any other questions? I'm glad that I think LinkedIn is coming back, but drop me a comment if you're on LinkedIn Live and you can see me now. That'd be awesome. What other questions? Anybody else have any questions? Again, feel free to drop them in the comment box, or you can shoot me an email. I don't think I've gotten any emails recently, but I'll look through my 27,000 messages in my inbox. Nice. Got a new person on Twitch. All right. We're up to, I think, 3 or 4. It's a good start. Love that. Gotta start somewhere, right? So I'm always excited to see new people starting from different places. So I'm not a huge all the things with Twitch, right? Where you get like trinkets and badges and tiers and all that kind of stuff. I just answer questions. That's all. You can just answer people's questions. I think that's helpful. It's not that fancy. Nice. Michael, thanks for confirming that LinkedIn is back up. It is my favorite. It is my spot. Is anybody using anything beyond LinkedIn? Because I usually throw it out there to the audience. Is there anybody seeing some traction in any other social networks that are job related? Like, is anybody finding any value in like Clubhouse or something different? I tend to think it's got all the pieces, right? It's got the networking, it's got the real information, and there's a lot that's available. And I expect we'll see more. For those of you that have been following Glassdoor, has been doing a lot in terms of posting diversity information. And I suspect we'll see a lot more organizations that are going to be more transparent about that moving forward. So that's a good thing. Provides a good way for us to tell healthy organizations and places that are inclusive, and where there might be some spots where you can just you can find a better organization to work for. So you can put pressure on organizations to really pay attention to this. And I think that's helpful, because I think if we can create better work environments, people will enjoy and stay at companies for longer periods of time. Everybody benefits in that scenario, right? Everybody wins. So I got a question from Michael. Any tips on how to effectively network on LinkedIn from a perspective of a junior engineer? Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that you can do is to not just be a passive consumer of content on LinkedIn, but just leave comments and give people those thumb ups or likes. I guess you can call them likes, and then be okay with reaching out to people and just connecting with them, and just try and not just click the connect button, but try and find something that inspired you to connect with them, and be transparent and share that. Hey, I want to connect with you. I'd love to be in your network. I noticed that you do a lot of insert this, and I think it's pretty cool that you're into this, right? And see if you can genuinely spark real conversations with people and start. When you say networking, so I looked at a piece, I think it was a post that someone posted yesterday, and it was so here's my take on networking. I think this is important because when you're networking, you're reaching out to see if you can provide some value for someone else. You can be helpful to this other person. That's networking. Networking is not do unto others so that in the future someone will do something back for you. There is an intrinsic value in being able to connect with other people, understand what their challenges are and ways that you can be helpful to them, and then just being helpful. Not helpful because you feel like at some point it'll come around and it'll help you. That's a bad reason. That's a very self-centered reason. It's like that's the social capital reason, right? That you're building up social capital so that you can then, be able to write a check later on. You're like banking money so that later on you can make a withdrawal. Do not think about networking that way, because when you're thinking about it that way, you're thinking like, what in the future? Well, I should reach out to people that in the future could provide opportunities for me. It should be very driven by the intrinsic value of just taking your skills and what you bring to the table and seeing how you can elevate and help other people, right? So if you come with that in mind, how could you be helpful? How could you can be helpful by just having an interesting conversation that's entertaining to someone, right? You can make someone laugh. That provides value to that person, right? And so once you can identify what your superpowers are, what your strengths are, it makes the process of networking a little bit easier, because you're not bottled up in like, what's the right words for me to use to introduce myself to this person? But instead, you're just a little bit more like, hey, I'd love to be helpful in any way. Love to join your network, love the work that you're doing, etc. Because you truly do. You truly think those are awesome. So I would do a lot of that. I would do a ton on LinkedIn of reaching out and connecting with people and broadening the folks that you actually have in your sphere to be able to talk to and communicate with. And then I would do a lot of just like being positive and reinforcing positive posts and things that you see that people are putting out that genuinely, make you happy. When I see a lot of people being successful, I'm like, man, that's awesome. Congratulations, etc. And so that will get you more folks in your on LinkedIn, in the LinkedIn sphere that's a first degree connections. And it will ensure that when you do have something that you think is meaningful or interesting, or you have something that you want to celebrate, like you just finished a passion project, or you just learned some new skill and you share that, now suddenly you can start having conversations. And one of the best at this game, his name is Gary Vaynerchuk. So Gary talks a lot about jab, 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 jab. Then you throw a hook. And so you should be doing a lot of that jabbing, a lot of that interacting with people's posts and reaching out to people. A lot of jabbing. It's all jabbing. It's not about you. It's about adding value in the ecosystem. And then eventually you just pull that hook and you're just like, right? And at that point you say, hey, I saw that you guys are like posted this job. We've been chatting a little bit. Do you think it's worthwhile for me to apply for that job? And the person's like, yeah, absolutely. Let me know when you apply. I'll make sure that you at least kind of like, your resume doesn't get lost, doesn't get dropped somewhere. And then sure enough, that person is an internal champion. They can ensure that at least you get a phone screening, at least you get to the first step. If you don't have those internal champions and you don't have that groundwork laid where you have relationships with people, it's really easy for people to just see a name and a face, and you're just one of many junior devs that are applying for this job, and they just throw it in the basket. Like, we're looking for a senior. We need someone more experienced, right? But if instead you've developed a relationship and they know how hungry you are, they know how hard you work, they know how passionate you are about wanting to break in, and like you got something to prove and you're on a mission and you're gritty and you're hungry and this is something that you really want to do and you do it as a hobby, as a pastime, this is your new thing, then you, I think, are going to have if they understand that, if that's being communicated, you'd be in a much better scenario. So if you come with that frame of mind, I think you'll be in good shape. So hopefully that helps. Great question, because I feel like people are sometimes looking for more of the tactical, like what's the specific thing that I should be doing? And I look at it as much more of like a strategic, like your strategy should be just getting in LinkedIn every day, every morning. I usually, first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, I jumped in LinkedIn, and I, like everybody else, we're all ego driven to some point. First thing I do is look at my notifications and see, did anybody like any of the posts did anybody make any comments? Like what's getting some traction? I haven't had any of those mornings where I wake up and like, your post got 3 million views. That hasn't happened yet, right? And at some point it'll just be luck, and like one of the posts will get a ton of views, or something will just have a lot of activity and action. And it's surprising sometimes what people are interested in, what they aren't. But I would say that at the end of the day, getting in there and seeing every day you got a couple people that are either connecting with you or following you is a great way to wake up in the morning and see, okay, we're off to start. The ball's moving. Now let me see if I can move it a little bit further. let me get into my feed, let me like a few comments, let me see what's interesting. That spreads it inside of your network, right? And if you see something that's like super amazing, like, oh man, this is legit, then I might like repost it. And I'm not like a influencer or anything, but I have at least a few enough followers that for someone that has fewer followers, if I post something, sometimes that amplifies the message, and they'll right away notice it. They'll be like, "Oh man, like thanks for sharing that post, etc." And that's a jumping off point to have a conversation. Hey, what are you into lately? What are you working on this year? What's your biggest challenge this quarter? Right? And then you can naturally see if there's a way that you can help folks. Just got a personal question. I recently spoke with a consultant agency who bills their people in quarter hours. Micromanagement of its people, 15-minute increments, could lead to burnout. So that's tough. I mean, we have sort of an agency style model, and the way that works often is driven by billable hours, right? And so the follow-up to this is for a full-time job where I'd be working with a consultancy of 70 people established in the early 2000s. So they've been around. Yeah, agency work is agency work. At the end of the day, if it's a long established agency and someone has been running their consultancy shop for a while, they're going to have it pretty dialed in. They're going to know what the numbers are that they need to hit. And so the good news is it's pretty clear. Like they might tell you, hey, look, you got to have every week, you got to have 35 billable hours. You got to have 40 billable hours, whatever that goal is. So I wouldn't so much get tied to like quarterly being a micromanagement system. I would just say, look, as with any agency work, it's going to be tough, challenging work. Typically, you have like a good variety of different clients. Some clients are great clients. Some clients are really difficult to deal with. But the good agencies that have a 70-person team, they're probably doing a lot of work and cranking a lot of work through that agency. And so from the developer's perspective, it's neat because you get interesting challenges. Sometimes you get very novel things that you're trying to one-off build really fast. Sometimes you're seeing like super high-end engineered user interfaces and UIs, and the client will come to you and say, can you build this? And it's like, parallax things sliding around and fading out. It's really neat work to have an opportunity to work with. And then sometimes you got brands, you get to work for like a big brand and you get to say, hey, I worked on something for like NASA or Coca-Cola. But the other side to it is it's genuinely hard work. It's difficult, it's challenging, and you usually have to get a lot of stuff done in a very short time frame. So I'm not too worried about the idea of like the quarterly hourly billing is the thing that causes burnout. I would just say in general, if it's a good agency, it's going to be challenging work. If like the margins are usually pretty tight with agency work, and a lot of them are doing fixed price bids. So when you as an organization are placing a fixed price bid on something, you want to control your labor costs and keep your labor costs as low as you possibly can so that you can ensure you didn't gamble. So follow-up question is, does that mean any learning takes place outside of the 40 hours? Sure. I'd say, especially when you're an early career developer, I would say you should be working super hard after hours to level your skill up if you want to move up quickly. Now, if you're okay with hey, during the day, they give me like 2 hours a week to study anything I want to study. And so you're like, so when I get home afterwards, I just kick my feet up and I chill and I go play video games. And like, I think I've gotten it, right? I'm in good shape. Every once in a while, I might do something on the weekends, do a little passion project or something. If that's your approach, you might be able to survive in an organization where you can just work, the 40 hours a week, come in, hit the paycheck player, where you just come in 40 hours a week, hit the clock, and then peace out. But if you want to move up in the organization quickly, or you want to kind of be able to grow yourself as a software engineer, you should be 100% committed to lifelong learning and spending, 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week, reading blogs, working on passion projects, learning other patterns, reading other people's code. Now, I'm not saying working on your work projects outside of your work hours. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about working off the clock. I'm talking about you growing and getting better as a software engineer. And if you're just relying on your work to get you better, you're not going to go as fast as if you really pour it in, and you spend 8 hours at least coding over the weekend, right? At least 8 hours coding on the weekend. If you do that, 1 or 2 years, you can be much closer to senior than if you just put in literally 40 hours, you clock out, you go home, and you just like veg out for a while. It's up to you. But yeah, a lot of learning is going to need to take place outside of the 40 hours. A lot. Early on, a ton. Especially when you come in, you may not have all the skills in the stack that you're going to be working on in an organization as a new developer. So you got to be willing to kind of like get some more reps outside of work, just doing passion projects and working on things and honing your craft, right? Think of it like any other craft, like anything else that you do. Don't think of it as just like a super just use your noggin, but instead it's like building. It's like being a carpenter / electrician / plumber all in one, because you're responsible for everything, front end, back end, right? Even if you don't have to lay hands on it to get it done and somebody else handles the front end, you still have to be thinking about it, right? You still have to be designing your solution or building software that takes into account all the other pieces, even if they're not your area of responsibility. You can't just close yourself off to those and like, I'm going to just toss code across the fence and hope that the other team can handle it. It's not going to work. So hopefully that's something that you're sort of thinking about in your process. Your handle is something Burrow, and yeah, if that's not what you were asking, or if you weren't asking for clarification on that, then yeah. But with an agency, the nice thing about it is you get a lot of different stuff, right? It's like we work on one project and it's like jQuery and PHP, and you're like, people still using this stuff? And then the very next project, it'll be like cutting edge React Native like app that you're using on an Android device. And it's just like from like week to week, the projects will be super inconsistent. But that's what's thrilling about working at an agency, is you're going to get to touch a lot of stuff. If that fits, if that's what you're looking for. But I wouldn't worry too much about the quarterly hour billing thing. Not a huge deal from my perspective. What else? What other questions do you guys have? That's a good one. By the way, agency work's not for everybody. So if you get frazzled by like constant like super big challenges, like every day wrestling with stuff and just like having some really challenging stuff that you got to kind of work through, and not things that you can just like quickly, you're going to Google it, you're going to see an example of the code and be like, all right, that's a great idea. And then you can take that and you can rewrite it or copy paste. That's not, most agency stuff is not that way. You really kind of have to get a handle on there's a trick to it. How do I get this to work? And then really figure it out. So the solutions are usually very novel. It's usually very, very specialized, very novel solutions. Okay, another one here. Recently having a hard time writing a good LinkedIn summary. Struggle, highlight, showcase to the ethos. Maybe I'm overthinking it. And the thoughts on how to go about presenting yourself authentic and non-conformable. Sure. So I always want to know, what do you think? Like, what's your superpower, right? So if you talk about your superpower, I think that's always something like right off the top that can distinguish you from other people. And I would try and steer clear in your summary. So if we're giving a summary on your skills, I would steer clear of, I am a graduate of a coding boot camp. I made a career change. I'm a fast learner and a good communicator, and I work well with other people. Stay away from all that nonsense fluff, right? Give me a tangible example of, on every team I'm on, I'm usually the first person to volunteer to be the scribe and or like the team lead. I love being in a position in Thrive where my contribution is beyond just an individual contributor, right? I'm not saying that's the exact verbiage, but like something that's going to distinguish. And it's not just like, I like to lead. Why do you like to lead, right? I like to be the leader in the group. Well, it could be, I like to help other people and bring out the best in other people. And so it's important to me to have sort of informal authority, even when I'm not in a leadership position, right? So give it a real tangible thing that they can hold on to, and not just I learn fast, I work hard. Like those are just not super great and engaging summaries. The second would be, don't just dismiss your previous and prior history. So I would make sure you're affirming that you're bringing something to the table as a whole person that helps make you a better and more distinguished software engineer and developer than the next candidate that may be starting their career and transitioning into technology. So think about, like, what have you learned that could be a transferable skill that, while the rest of your resume might highlight that you have experience in, like, let's say it's in the service industry, right? So you're working at like a hotel or a restaurant, hospitality in some way. So that's a great skill to be able to say, I have a deep sense of empathy in delivering solutions that really meet the requests of customers. I come from a hospitality background, so I really want to be servant and help people solve problems, right? Those are the kinds of things that you'll be able to draw on, hopefully, and use as like transferable skills that really apply to software engineering. So hopefully that helps. Found me on Operation Code. Yes, I love Operation Code. Great organization. For those of you that are not aware, their whole focus is people that are former military, so veterans that are trying to help other veterans transition into careers in tech. So love that organization. So this person graduated from a coding boot camp, looking for the first role and curious what the tech scene is like in San Diego. Moved back here, not really connected with the community here, curious. Wow. So we have a vibrant tech community here in San Diego. I've been a long time member of the San Diego JavaScript community. We used to host 8 in-person events every single month. 8 in-person events prior to COVID. So I think that's a good sign. Just that one organization, just San Diego JavaScript, that we like to get together, right? We like to talk, like nerd out together, and that we are a tech hub, right? We're not the same as LA or Silicon Valley or New York. We don't like being compared to them. Like, we should be trying to be like other places. It is very unique. It's a unique environment here in San Diego, but I think a very, very both competent ecosystem. So there's lots of people that are working as like defense contractors. We have a lot of defense industry here in San Diego. So you got a lot of military, but you got big like Northrop Grumman and Thermo Fisher Scientific and SPAWAR and just, all these like real high-end like technical defense contractors. Then you got biotech. And so there's a huge biotech industry here. And then lots of the traditional stuff. So you've got some really top schools like UCSD, CSU San Marcos, SDSU, San Diego Code School. And then you've got vibrant community college startup ecosystem. So I think there's a ton. I would plug into, it's a little different now because everything's like virtual. So it's a little bit harder for people to kind of figure out like what's still happening and who's still meeting. But I'd plug into the JavaScript community. That's sandiegojs.org. Great community, like lots of activity there. We have a Slack channel, so great way to connect with folks. There's a .NET community. There's a Ruby community. There's a there's a lot. There's a bunch of folks that are doing DevOps. There's a DevOps community, Python community, super huge Python community here in Django. South of the border in Tijuana, there's a strong Django and Python community as well. So there's a pretty good tech scene here in San Diego. It is one of the big industries and really growing, and have been some of the most resilient jobs throughout COVID. So I think you're going to be excited as you start plugging in and getting deeper into the tech scene here. Lots of support, lots of innovation happening here in San Diego. Do I recommend designers know how to code? Okay, that's a good question, and there's a couple of layers to it. So I would say for people that are their primary area that they believe they're going to want to work daily is not coding, it's really hard. It's really hard because it takes a certain amount of time coding before you get a really solid handle on it. And so I often tell people, if it's not something you're going to do, then I wouldn't spend that much time trying to really get into it and really trying to understand. And so I would say, if you want to build things, yes, 100%. But don't learn it so that you can thinking that you'll just be better at design, right? Because it will take so much effort and energy. You can do it. You can learn to become a software engineer, but it takes so much time and energy that could distract you from what you actually enjoy doing, which is that design, UX, UI type stuff, that I feel like it's not necessary. It's not necessary that you know how to code for you to be better at your job. Now, if you want to be able to implement things, 100%. If you're like, I'm envious of the fact that folks can breathe life into these designs and make things actually function, have at it. There's tons of ways that you can learn on your own. You can go through free code camp. You can go through, there's a ton of opportunities for you to learn over time, and without the constraint of it has to be done for you to be able to survive and to feed your family. I think it's great. But the question that's the layer beneath your question is why? Why do they want to? And if it's a sensible reason, I'd say, yeah, go for it. But if it's so I become better at design, be like, no, not a good enough reason. It's going to be really hard and you're not going to like it. You got to enjoy it. You got to really want to do it because it's hard. And I share with folks that I'm learning to play the drums, and it's helpful for me because it's given me like a habit, something I have to do every single day to get better at. So I'm on a streak. I think I've practiced 45 days in a row. I'm on a 45-day streak. And I practiced before that, but then I lost my streak. So I'm only counting the streak, 45 days. And coding's like that. If you want to get good at software engineering, you got to practice it every single day. And so is it something where you feel like you can go on a streak and you can do it for 45 days straight, and then for 50 days straight, and for 60 days straight? And if you do that, then it's worth it. But if you're like, nah, I just want to be better at design, I want to just understand more what's happening on the other side, it's not worth your time. It's not enough of a reason. Yeah. I see people saying, let's hear you, or I think what you mean is, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what that means. Maybe that's a yes behind me. I'm not sure. What other questions, comments, concerns do folks have? I feel like this is good. We got a lot of good questions, and hopefully this has been helpful. If so, tell a friend, bring a friend. Love to have more people join this and ask questions that we can sort of help guide them along their way. Oh, you want to hear me play drums? Oh yeah, we're not doing any recitals today. No, I at some point I will get a camera set up here in my office. My camera is sort of like mounted above the computer, so it'd be really disruptive and hard for me to like angle it in such a way where you can actually see. And then I have to like get it connected, so it would take me a little while to set it up. Needless to say, but I'll do a recital. We'll figure out a date and time. Do that. Throw another little camera up so you can actually see what's going on. But yeah, I got a good sized kit, and I already donated my first kit that I got. I got an electric drum set for my son, and I was like, "You should learn how to play drums. Here's a drum set," and I got it to him for like Christmas or his birthday, and then he didn't use it for like months and months and months. So I was like, "Well, I'm just gonna like learn how to play drums," and so I used it for a little while, and it's like, "All right, this is addictive. So now I need to get a real set," and so I went out and bought a much nicer kit that I have now, and I truly do enjoy playing the drums. I was DJ when I was much younger, so it takes me back to those days where I was really into music. I don't know that I ever lost the interest in the music. It was just we had a period or so where the music was not that great up until recently. Sorry to hate on some of the folks out there producing what you're producing, but a lot of it's garbage. yeah, we gotta get some more, good stuff. I can already imagine this conversation is going to devolve very quickly because people are going to be like, "What's good stuff?" I heard internships are a good way to get more experience. Do you know of any good companies that offer great internships or any tips for getting practical experience? Yes. So my tip for getting practical experience is work on passion projects. What I mean by passion projects is something that you're interested in, something that can demonstrate your current skill set, and it should be something you can complete in like 2, maybe 3 days max. Don't pick a project that's going to take you months and months and months to build, because it'll always be sort of an unfinished thing with like, broken this and that's not working and I'm going to do this later and all. Like, you don't want that. You want something that's like very small, very focused. It can demonstrate 1 or 2 or 3, whatever the number of your skills are, and something that you can just run it to the ground and get it built in a matter of like 2 to 3 days. Not ride-alongs. So don't watch a video on YouTube and just build whatever's in the video and then just say, I built this like to-do app. Not helpful. Instead, you could watch that, build that to-do app, but then build something like totally different. That's not a to-do app, and it's just sort of like, now that you've got that skill, now you believe you can tackle something else, right? And so maybe you build a to-do app watching the video, and then you build like a recipe catalog, right? And you like use what you thought there about, creating lists and whatnot. Awesome, right? So you'll want to find as many of those projects as you can. It is entirely possible for you to find paid internships. I'm not a huge fan of unpaid internships. One, it's because it's illegal and unethical in most circumstances. So like the company shouldn't even be doing it. And it's questions like, okay, why is the company doing an unpaid internship opportunity? That's a whole nother issue. The other thing is, when people sign up sometimes and they get started in an internship, even a paid internship, they kind of take their foot off the gas and they kind of think, even mentally in the back of their mind, even if they haven't got an offer in hand, they kind of think, I'm just going to sink all my time and all my effort into just doing so well at this internship that they'll have no choice but to hire me. I know they're going to want to hire me afterwards. They're going to want to keep me. And by taking your foot off the gas and just focusing on that opportunity, if the job offer doesn't come through, then what you got from that is, yes, some work experience and maybe a letter, but that might not be nearly as strong as having built 4 or 5 projects that you can walk into an interview and show you're super passionate. Here's a fully developed skill that you have, that you built these apps, and you're super hungry and you're ready to go. I just think I've seen enough people go down the route of the unpaid internship and just like steer clear of those. And even the paid internship, I would really want to know, what is the likelihood of that converting into a job? And if the likelihood is what it usually is, which is like 1/3 or less of them convert into a full-time job, it's just hard to internalize that number and realize like there's a very good chance you're not going to get a job offer at the end of the internship. Very good chance. Now, if you have a CS degree, better chance they're going to hire you after the internship. That might be a 70-80% success rate. But for a graduate of a coding bootcamp, very strong likelihood, unless they've told you up front, this is your job to lose. If you do well during this internship, we're going to convert you in 2 months. So let's just crush it. Unless they're saying exactly that, there's a very good chance, there's a 66% chance or greater that there will not be a job. And then the question is like, did you gain enough out of the experience that you got more than if you just buckled down and built 5, 6, 7 projects over 9 or 10 weeks? Can't make that decision for you, but lots of companies offer internships. I don't have like a good solid list of which ones I think are better, but most of the large organizations are typically using those internship programs as a primary way to recruit folks out of CS degree programs at colleges and universities. It's just a standard part of how they operate. Junior year in college, they're trying to get people to work at their internship, get excited about the opportunity, get to know the person, so that when they graduate, they can convert them over and they can recruit them to come work at their organization. For bootcamp graduates and stuff, I think you personally believe that you are far better off just working on passion projects. So Hannah says, Marcus often used to do web design before I knew how to code. And I can tell you, knowing the basics of at least the CSS will save a designer and developer time. So it's not required, but helpful. Yeah, 100%. I think it's CSS and like layouts, is one of those areas where if you as a designer don't have a good sense of everything on the page is a box, everything lives inside of a box. Once you have that concept down, you can think about breaking up your layouts and making it sort of like on a grid and responsive, and really thinking about both layout and design in terms of what the work effort might be to if you're just laying things out like much more organically, you're creating just a lot of extra work for the developers. But just about everything that you can design, we can implement as a developer. It's just time, right? If nothing's lined up, everything's like all over the place, it's way harder than if everything's in a nice grid and you're thinking about things in boxes. So solid advice. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Especially about 2 to 3 day limit. Yeah, because projects will get out of control super fast. So I can't tell you the number of times, and it's kind of like just a common thing when you're more seasoned engineer, that when you're earlier on in your career, you're like, I'm going to start a blog. I'm going to make a piece of blog technology, and it just has to have pages and posts. So I'm going to build my own blog site. And then you get halfway through building that site, or you build it, and then you're like, blogging isn't like actually a lot of work, so I'm just not going to do that. But then you're like, oh man, I saw this new language, new framework. I'm going to rebuild my blogging site. I'm going to rebuild my portfolio site and insert new technology. And that's, to me, a red flag. That's a code smell. If I'm a hiring manager and I see someone that's like, oh, check out my custom rolled portfolio site. I'm like, how about I don't? How about you show me the projects that you worked on that are going onto your portfolio site? I would much rather see a nicely formatted markdown document on someone's GitHub that has links to their projects than a super stylized, all pimped out portfolio page. Now, that said, if you are going after like a front end UI job, then maybe you have to have both. Maybe you have to have a nice polished looking portfolio site, and you need to have some mechanism by which you can get people to see the volume of high quality work that you're doing. But a lot of folks put all their eggs in one basket. They're just like, look at this amazing portfolio site, and then they do not a great job of laying out like screenshots and the work that they're working on. It should be super polished projects, and then the container that you put it in could be a WordPress site. I don't care. Like, buy a nice theme. Spend $50. Buy a nice theme. Throw it up on WP Engine, right? It doesn't matter to me whether you are hosting it yourself on an EC2 instance on AWS, or you're hosting it on GitHub pages. None of that stuff is all that relevant to me. I just want to see, like, show me a variety of the different type of work that you're capable of. So keep that in mind. It's also what you're demonstrating. Any other questions? Hopefully this has been helpful. I do this every week. We had a little hiccup when we're getting ready to go with LinkedIn, but we usually kick it off on LinkedIn. It's on Facebook. It's on YouTube. We're streaming it on Periscope. We're now streaming it on Twitch. So you can catch it in any of those places, however you want to. I'm getting questions in from Twitch. I'm getting questions in from LinkedIn. So if you just throw them in the comment box, they come to me. I think we got a question earlier or a comment from YouTube. So I'll let you pick your favorite platform, whatever you want to watch this on. Awesome. And then drop me a comment if you think we need to have like a page, or if we need to make this a podcast or whatever. I'm happy to try and accommodate and provide the best mechanism for people to get these questions answered. Clubhouse, we want to do a Clubhouse room. We can do that too. I don't know. Trying to figure out a way I can simulcast to Clubhouse. If anybody knows how to do that trick, please shoot me a message. Mike@stcs.io. If I could not be on Clubhouse, but still be on Clubhouse, that'd be phenomenal. Phenomenal. All right, questions are starting to slow down, so we're going to cut this. If we don't get another one, we'll wrap. We'll meet again next week on all the places, which I think is fun. I think it's pretty cool that I just use one tool. It's called StreamYard, And then that one tool connects with all these other ones. So I feel like I'm like a cable network or something where I'm on these different platforms. Just this decent, especially since LinkedIn took a poop today. Be curious to see the postmortem. So for new developers, whenever a platform goes down, this is the stuff they don't necessarily teach in the boot camp. Part of the process of preventing it from happening again is every time you have a major service disruption, you as the team, the technical team, the engineering team, provides a report as to what happened. It's called the postmortem. And so at some point there'll be a postmortem, and you'll be able to read whatever, especially if it's a publicly traded organization, whatever like the root causes were of the disruption. And hopefully for them, for their sake, it was like a DDoS attack or something. I was like, okay, it's understandable. But it's oftentimes it's like, well, we thought we had this system that we took offline to do this one thing, but we actually took down the whole site because we didn't plan it out well. Is usually the root cause. They just didn't plan it out well, or some kind of thing goes down. But big platform like LinkedIn are usually very interesting case studies to look at, because there are situations that you will not generally find yourself in as a new developer, and it's just very interesting to see how sites that are usually highly available and very resilient can fail. And then think about the root causes, and then you can apply that towards smaller applications and apply some of those best practices in the type of work that you're doing. It's also, as a new developer, a great opportunity for you to pick up more of the language of like, oh, okay, so these are words I should be familiar with as we're describing some of these concepts of, high availability, right? And how do we maintain a site that has, millions of page views and millions of visitors? And how do we make sure that that site is distributed and can serve up content from everywhere? Those are interesting challenges that you should be, to the person asked the question earlier today, that you should be thinking beyond just your current job, but thinking how, by reading those postmortems, can you get better at identifying, security risks and ways that you can mitigate them. So somebody asked, sounds cool, where you find this report. I bet you if you just Google postmortem LinkedIn, then you'll find your way to them. They're usually they're very public, and the sort of the norm within the industry is to share the learnings that you had, not only with your investors and people that are like buying Microsoft and LinkedIn stock, but also to share it with other technical shops, so everybody kind of learns from one another. Like, oh, hey, we blew it, we dropped the ball, this is what happened, so you can avoid that same mistake. So it's very common. These postmortems are usually very easy to find. If you just, like I said, just do a really quick search on LinkedIn, or I'm sorry, on Google, then you'll be able to find it. Now, if Google goes down, oh man, we get trouble. But yeah, they're usually pretty easy to find. And they usually come out right away. So they'll be like working on it in progress, and usually within like 24 hours, there'll be something that's like a technical write-up of what went wrong and what the plan is to maybe avoid it again in the future. We do that at our apprenticeship. So we have a registered apprenticeship program in the state of California here that allows us to hire folks and train them to become software engineers. None of them pay us any tuition, and they don't owe us any money. And so as part of our best practices, when we're managing or maintaining a site or one of our properties and something goes down, we actually have our students practice, and they write a postmortem, and they sort of describe what happened, what led to it, and what could be done in the future to prevent it from happening again. So it could be part of the practice that you have when you're on the job. All right, unless there's any other questions, I think we're going to wrap. So if you got questions, I know there's a little bit of delay. You got to fire those questions out, put them in the comment box. Or you can drop me an email message, mike@sdcs.io, and I will do my best to try and answer those questions next week. All right. That's a wrap. Later.